And I say lob it to Ryan Perez in the paint off a couple of screens.
Esquivel to Garcia. Off the deflection. Los Fresnos comes back and wins. Now Santa Maria will put up a three. Bang! Santa Maria!
There's Warner. Here comes a headed jam. Counted for two.
Field. Adios! And the Falcons win on a walk-off.
And it's saved.
What a game. Smack to the left. That is gone.
Lob for Perez. That's my play. Off the backboard. Count it. And a win. And a win. Ryan Perez wins the game for the Santa Rosa Warriors, and they go nuts. And why not?
Live once again here from Luke Fruia Motors, Luke Fruia Buick GMC and Cadillac. If you're in the market for a new car, well, might I suggest Luke Fruia Buick GMC and Cadillac. They'll get you situated in well, Buick GMC and Cadillac, and phenomenal service again in Brownsville, Texas. And well, just looking forward to this show. We got, of course, a little bit of a rundown for you. Of course, RSL Network. Here on RSL Network, we'll talk about, of course, the showcase. We'll talk about all RGV sports, what's going on right now. For that, we have, of course, simply UTRGV Baseball. They are about to do their Southland Conference tournament. Of course, we have not too long from now the fun little Harlingen RGV Red Crowns. They are about to start their season this weekend and next week as well with their season opener. That's going to be a fun one. So much to talk about this for this weekend. Of course, this weekend, like I haven't mentioned yet, but I will mention right now, the ball, softball, and baseball charter school tournament. State tournament to be exact, where we will be covering that as well. So much fun and so much to get into. Of course, a little bit of professional sports involved. The one other than the WNBA basketball season is starting up this weekend as well, with some great slated games that I want to, if we have time, dive into. Of course, then we have some racing to get into. The Indianapolis 500 not too long away, a week away to be exact, and it's really kind of carb week. They're getting their miles, getting ready for how that setup and all of that's going to be, all the test sessions just like they normally do. Oh, it's fantastic. I cannot wait for all of that. And man, this is going to be a fun show. It really is going to be a fun show. Thank you to Joe Bowling for allowing me to still do this with Rio Sports Live Network, coming here weekly and getting to cover sports. It's a blessing. It really is. It's very grateful to be here. But enough about that. Let's move on. First thing that, of course, we talk about is the showcase for Rio Sports Live Network. I was able to do, of course, Saturday, and then of course a little bit of championship Sunday, which was tough because it was Mother's Day. Hopefully all the mothers out there had a phenomenal Mother's Day, even if they were at the showcase, because, well, I mean, it was phenomenal. A phenomenal event. I love that we're able to put this on every single year, and now, of course, with the Vipers at the Vipers practice facility, that was pretty fun to do. One of the things, of course, to mention was well, again, all the teams that were out there. And for, of course, your champions, you want to check their our social media pages from Facebook as well. It's one of the things to look at once again with the Rio Sports Live, or the RSL Network. Of course, on social media, they had a lot of stuff, but absolutely phenomenal stuff. And so it was just one of those situations. Championship day, it ended up being pretty interesting. The Rebels were able to, on the girls' side, make it straight into the semifinals. That was at 12 noon, and the Breeze, same deal there, with the Racers checked that the Breeze, the Racers, and the Storm were able to make it into that quarterfinals, just trying to make it into the final. On the girls' side and on the boys' side was very interesting in itself, with, of course, the Rebels making it to the final, or making it to the semifinals, with the Racers having those buys, and the Barracudas were able to take care of the Lightning for that game, and then the Breeze were the Breeze were able to take care of the Storm very easily, and so that was pretty interesting in itself. And all of a sudden, it was Breeze, Racers, Rebels, and Barracudas. So very nice on that end, on that championship day, and again, some spectacular play on both ends that led to a crazy comeback victory, and the Racers ended up surviving to beat the Barracudas to win it in overtime with the 3 in the final seconds. So check the Barracudas out. It ended up coming back and beating the Racers in that final, which of course it's on our social media, and that was a phenomenal game in general for that showcase. Congratulations to the Barracudas coming back and winning the whole thing over the Racers, which was just something that was absolutely spectacular for them, and this is a great job. But either way, of course, the showcase was done perfectly and really well done on every inch. And now, of course, the next time you'll see us covering basketball will most likely be for some more summer league action and just all of that fun stuff. Get a phenomenal tournament, and I absolutely loved it for every second that I was able to cover it. Now on to the kind of the next section of it, which this was pretty fun to be able to cover as well. Again, like I said, I got to do the boys' side of the bracket for the first 2 days for a couple of the games, the quarterfinal games to be exact, and those quarterfinal games, just really getting into it, were shockingly blowouts because of how evenly matched everybody was. It was just shocking to see the way that both teams kind of came out. One team came out a little bit more furious than the others, and that was, of course, the Barracudas. Like I mentioned, they didn't make it into the championship, so that was pretty interesting in itself, or they didn't make it into that bye into the semifinals, and so that was pretty cool in itself, as well as how much they had to come back into the tournament and really work their butts off to get to where they were for that. And so very, very nice for themselves to have a good tournament. Well, we're just getting started here. When we return, I think we'll switch gears really quickly to talking about a little bit more about the RGV Red Crowns and interesting parts of that. We'll be right back after this. Stay tuned.
Elevation, AT4, AT4X, Denali. Case closed. Fruia GMC, we're professional grade.
Are you looking for a new place on South Padre Island? How about Starney's Hot Dogs and More? These dogs are delicious, and they're made the way you want to order. A new place on South Padre, Starney's Hot Dogs and More. Stop by today.
Fiber, this is our home. Take a look at our picture.
Sunny Glen Children's Home has provided a
Back live we go once again, just getting started with this broadcast, and it's of course fun to always talk about all these things. And well, one of the newest things in the RGV, of course, coming up very soon is, well, the RGV Red Crowns. And it's crazy. I got to talk to interview the head coach today, which was very interesting. Rafael Reyna, which want to talk a little bit about him, where he comes from for the Valley. And well, he's from Mission, Texas to be exact. And one of the coolest things about that is he's the Mission Veterans Memorial head coach for soccer. And if you know one thing about, well, Mission Veterans Memorial, well, they are a football program. Coach Gilpin has done a phenomenal job with that team and with that side, and loved when I was able to cover the football program, but didn't really cover the soccer program. And it's interesting because, well, one thing that you can think of when you think of Mission High School, Mission Veterans Memorial, is their football programs really take over in a sense. And of course the volleyball program for Mission Veterans Memorial and even Mission High School being successful, finishing 1-2 in district play. And so why I bring all of those things up is because, well, that's what you think of, and you don't really think of their soccer. And Coach Rafael, I got to talk to him, and he says we're changing that. Just at Mission Veterans Memorial in general, right before changing the program or just building a culture for this new team in Harlingen, trying to build it around them. And so that's a very cool thing. And we were able to talk about what his expectations are for this season and for this first matches. And he was able to say, well, we're just going to focus doing everything that we practice on, putting it into fruition in this match. And they play against San Antonio Corinthians, I believe, this Saturday in San Antonio, to be exact. So then they'll play at home a week from Saturday in Harlingen Field against a smaller Dallas team, and that's going to be very fun. Central Dallas FC, I believe, is their name. And so that's going to be just something to really think of in general, and how this is all going to be. It was fun to chat with Rafael Reyna, and some accolades for you all to just think, oh, he's just some high school coach and he's been signed to this semi-pro. And that's what people would think without doing their due diligence, without doing their research. Well, let me tell you a little bit more about your head coach for the RGV Red Crowns, because it's just very interesting. He is Valley-based, but going on top of that, guess what? He got to get his UEFA B license in Germany. He ended up getting his UEFA A license in Wales. Got to go in Europe and learn about the game, the beautiful game that is of soccer. And so when he learned about that, he was able to, well, get what he learned about and put it to the test in the biggest thing, which of course being, well, the professional side of things, the high school side of things, really getting what he learned and putting that to the test in the RGV. And so it's really interesting. We talked about this team and how important it is. Yes, he told me he was the sole purpose of why there's two players from TSC, for the Valley players down there. He said he didn't really want to take credit for the international players that they ended up getting, or not the international, but the players that are outside of the RGV in a way. And when I talked to him about how is this team, not necessarily how did this team come about, but with the chemistry for a lot of those players, what has that been like for him? And he was able to explain it very well with the St. Edward's players being together. They've played together and they know exactly what to expect from each other, and so very confident in those ends. And then getting the two leaders from the Savannah Clovers, he talked about Corey Lundeen and how yeah, they can give a lot of wisdom to those younger players that are maybe just coming out of high school and or just in college for that first year. From TSC, of course, those two players from, I believe, Los Fresnos High School in Edinburgh, Economies, I believe, that ended up going to TSC. And so that's, a big thing. They both played for, I believe these are both the players, played for FC Brownsville as well, so they have that background for that youth team. And so there's a lot more skill on this roster than I first anticipated. And then, of course, getting to talk to Coach Rafa Reina, he really made me understand why those players are, why they picked those players, why they are where they're at now. And it was a phenomenal conversation. And so just gives me even more hype than I did before, and brings me joy of why I'll be able to call their matches here very soon. They'll be played on the National Soccer Network on YouTube, which will be very fun to watch in general. It's brilliant. It really is brilliant, and I'm so excited for this team, this adventure, for this beautiful adventure. And like we talked about, going away from Texas, or going away from the RGV FC Toros when they disbanded, and now you have this fresh start. And again, it feels so much different. The head coach might be from the Valley, but he knows he seems to know exactly where his philosophy is. And that's what you want as a head coach in any sport. We go back to football, or American football. You don't want this head coach that's, he's not transparent with the media, with the fans, of where you don't necessarily know what his game plan is going to be moving forward. And I hope that's not the situation with UTRGV football, because it seems a little different as well. So there's all these moving pieces, all these moving parts that I'm really excited for. And I'm looking forward to this new season, this upcoming season for the RGV Red Crowns, and myself included, because I don't know, it's going to be great. I really do feel like it's going to be great. At the start, you will recognize this field as being a bit more of a baseball field. Why is the press box at the north end of the field instead of at midfield, to be exact? And it's due to the fact of it used to be a baseball field. I've talked it over before, and that baseball field it's got so much history with the White Wings being played, and now it's going to be completely redone, revamped in the coming years, because there's a big plan for themselves to make it a soccer-specific stadium, to make it host events, and again, it's just going to be a staple of the perfect location as well, and your restaurants and your hotels in Harlingen, not too far from Harlingen South High School, home of Harlingen South High School, and so it's not too far away from there. And if you know that business, Bass Boulevard around there, it's a good side of things. So it's in a perfect location for things to be lively again there. I cannot wait. No new signings at the moment for this team. We know that at least 10 have been fully announced, but we will have more signings very soon for this team, because again, they play this Saturday, so the roster will be available, I'm sure, in the coming days. And it was interesting when we interviewed Rafael Reina. He took the whole entire day off because he was just getting ready for this season coming up. And so since we had some time to interview him, half an hour at least, it was cool to really talk about him. I thank the RG Red Crowns for giving us that time to interview him, and it'll be a really good in-depth analysis into this team. I really have a feeling that this team can potentially strive for their conference, their division victory, because each division, each conference, if you win that, you automatically make it to the playoffs, and that's it. That's the only team that's going to the playoffs. So for every single division that they have, that's what's going to be the key to advancing your career or advancing your season. And so that's cool. And guess what? They can technically, the RGV Red Crowns, if they really want to in the next year, qualify for the U.S. Open Cup. I don't expect them qualifying for the U.S. Open Cup, like trying to qualify for the U.S. Open Cup right off the bat, but that is a certain thing that I think is in the near future, because there's going to be big plans and I'm excited for it. Well, been talking for a bit. We're going to take a quick little break. When we return, we'll be back for some more Talkin sports here with Jacob Young at Luke Fruia Motors. Like I mentioned, it's going to be very exciting. I think we'll talk some baseball, we'll talk some softball, of course, as both things are getting full into the tournament phase of things for college and all that fun stuff. We'll be right back after this. Stay tuned.
36. If you'd like more information on Sunny Glen and the services we offer, please visit us at www.sunnyglen.org.
South Padre Island. Enjoy endless activities for all ages. Then dance the night away with live music, savor fresh seafood, and discover unique food trucks and shop our charming boutiques. What are you waiting for? Escape the everyday at South Padre Island.
Sherryland ISD, a nationally recognized district focusing on quality and rigorous instruction where every child is immersed in a culture of academic success. Sherryland ISD, excellence is our tradition.
When you study local at Texas Southmost College, you can choose from over 50 associate degree programs, certificates, and workforce training programs, all at the most affordable cost in the Rio Grande Valley. Transfer your TSC credits to a university or start a new career, like Kat Gomez, who graduated from TSC and is now patrolling the streets of Brownsville and serving her community. Register now at tsc.edu/register and study local at Texas Southmost College.
Time to take a new look, maybe your first look at Buick. If smart, hip, and affordable is for you, Buick's your brand. Fruia Buick, Brownsville, Texas.
Back live we go once again here. It's very exciting. It's a very exciting day here. Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. Beautiful Brownsville, Texas. Once again, it's, well, very windy though out here. And, well, as we see this, Texas A&M, great day to be an Aggie. Great week to be an Aggie. The reason, of course, being, well, the softball NCAA tournament is officially underway, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about that as well, because it's kind of interesting. With just this one thing, of course, we can name all the teams that were announced into the NCAA regional tournaments that they'll have. Why is it the regional tournaments? Well, because this is different. In softball and baseball, they do it a lot more different than football, basketball. Well, don't even get me started, of course, on football, but soccer, basketball, and even volleyball. Of course, we all know for basketball, you have March Madness. You have that 64 teams or however many, 68 teams now that get in, and they do the play-in games and all that fun stuff, and it's at neutral sites. And then, of course, for women's basketball, you have teams that get to host and all of that. But yes, you have your regional, and then you have normally Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, and then your Final Four. Okay. Well, for baseball and softball, it's a little different. You have teams that get to host a regional. You have 3 teams, I believe, that get into that regional. Let me just, of course, triple check that real quick for example. For Texas A&M softball. For example, they'll have at least 3 games that they'll need to play, if not 4. Well, they'll play St. Francis, and of course, their full calendar being something pretty interesting. It's 2:30, but you have St. Francis this Friday, May 16th. So all the way down you go. Yes, you have St. Francis University at least for that one game. You don't know necessarily who you'll play next, but yes, you host that regional. If you win, you go to a super regional. Now for Texas A&M, they'll get to host that super regional as well. They don't know necessarily who they'd play in that super regional to get to the Women's College World Series. And so the Women's College World Series, it's about 8 teams. And so with that 8 teams, you get into that dogfight for the national championship in a way. And the national championship is a 2-game series, 2 or best of 3, I believe, game series. So that's always very fun. That's the same thing with how a Men's College World Series goes and how you get there. Is you have your regional, then you have your super, then you have your College World Series. And so, of course, on those sides, it's very exciting. But for the first time in program history, Texas A&M, shout out to them, get the overall number 1 seed. Yes, that means they got the overall number 1 seed over Oklahoma, a team that has been dominant in the NCAA softball world forever. Texas A&M, the last time they played Oklahoma was back when Oklahoma were in the Big 12, and the reason why they played against them was because they were drawn into their, I believe, regional, which was kind of interesting. And so Texas A&M for that first time or something like that beat Oklahoma and made Oklahoma have to rethink and refocus into, and that was like the longest home win streak or something like that for a while, and then they beat them, and that was something crazy. And then all of a sudden Oklahoma, of course, destroyed Texas A&M when they needed to, and ended up advancing on to their super and their, of course, championship in the end in softball. So very exciting. And of course, Oklahoma joining the SEC with Texas made this year's softball even more exciting, because right at the start of the season, I believe it was 7 out of the top 7 teams in the top 10 right at the start of the preseason poll. And then, well, it continued. You had Texas still at that top level with Oklahoma and Texas A&M being about your top 3 teams, and then Georgia were number 6, and so you had a lot of amazing teams that got into the tournament and will host. You have, of course, I believe 16, just like baseball, your original 16 that will end up hosting the regional. So it's top 16 teams, and for the SEC really being able to dominate that much in softball goes to show how much this conference has changed from just being a power football conference to being a force to be reckoned with on every stage of the athletic spectrum for football, for basketball, for baseball, for soccer even as well, kind of picking that up on the women's side at least. But yeah, it's so much fun when these tournaments come down to it. Speaking about tournaments as well, of course, giving you all your update on your softball for the RGV. And so, of course, team that made it to the state semifinals last year, well, it's pretty interesting here. Of course, you're unfortunately in the end losing to Smithson Valley High School. I believe that was Smithson Valley. Losing to them, yes, Smithson Valley High School in the best of 3 series. Losing 2 games to 1 means that they will be eliminated, and your team, both teams that made it to that state semis and finals, are both already eliminated in the tournament, unfortunately, which basically means, well, will there be any teams that make it? I don't believe so. For baseball, on your baseball side of things, for RGV baseball, in high school to be exact, which is pretty interesting in general. The teams that always are expected to make it, we're waiting and seeing, of course, who were able to do exactly that. And Bryan, I believe it's Bryan College Station High School, will play best of 7 on the 17th. Best of 3, I mean, on the 17th, so this weekend. After being Mission Veterans Memorial High School in a 2-game sweep, after beating Brownsville Lopez in 3 games, losing 1-0 in the first game, and then beating Lopez 13-3 and 4-3 on the 2nd of May. And then beating them beating Mission Veterans Memorial High School on the 8th and 9th of May, and then all of a sudden now it's on the 17th. So that's going to be very exciting, and we'll give you exactly who it was. Bernie Champion Chargers, that's who it is. Bernie Champion Chargers, that's who Sherryland High School will be playing against on the 17th, and that is, to be exact, we'll tell you exactly where they are. I think that might be your regional semis, potentially. And that's exactly where it is. Speaking about another semifinal, Liberty Hill taking on Sherryland Pioneer. That's game number 55. And your day on that one, I'll have to, I guess, click on it really quickly just to make sure that I know exactly what date that will be. And for you all, that's, of course, also on the 17th. So that's going to be a neutral site game Saturday against Liberty Hill. That's not going to be an easy run-up, but that is exciting. These two dominant powerhouses, they played against each other before to see who goes to state. And that's, of course, what we want to see in general, is 2 Valley schools, even in baseball, having that opportunity to play for state. And if that happens in the regional finals, hopefully it is a neutral site game, and depending on, of course, how UTRGV are, and I believe the tournament should already be done by then for the Southland Conference tournament, and hopefully your champion will be the UTRGV Vaqueros, making it to, of course, the NCAA tournament if they do that in the regional, and hopefully, of course, they're not matched up in the Texas regional. That would be just unfortunate in general because, yeah, you're probably one of the last teams in, and you're probably going to be playing against the number 1 team, the overall number 1 seed, or in the number 1 overall seeds region, which could technically be Texas. So that might happen in general, but either way, like I mentioned, hopefully it will be there at Edinburgh's baseball field, because of the fact of, well, that place can seat a good amount, and it would be right in the RGV. And if you're a baseball fan, of course, you should go to it if that ends up happening. Now, of course, what has to happen? Pretty simple. Sherryland Pioneer have to beat Liberty Hill in a best of 3 series, and Sherryland High School have to beat Liberty Hill, or have to beat Bernie Champion in a best of 3 series. It's going to be very difficult. A very difficult thing to end up happening to just get you to that state semis and potentially state finals. But it's just so exciting. State semis and finals was normally back in the day, at least at Texas, the softball field and the baseball field. Hopefully, of course, maybe, I mean, if that's still the case, that's fine. But the only thing for myself, personally, yes, of course I'm an Aggie, but this goes beyond being an Aggie. I love original baseball fields. What does that mean? Not turf fields. And Texas is known for having a turf field. I like the real dirt. I like the real clay. And it just, that's where baseball should be played. I don't care if you make the outfield turf. But what I care about is the infield being classic. Because that's just the way that baseball should be played in general. That's just the way that softball should be played in general. It is being not artificial. That's, of course, my rant, but I think a lot of people would agree with me on that. Anyways, that's very exciting. Sharyland High School, Sharyland Pioneer, with the chance to play against each other. They just have to beat Liberty Hill and just have to beat Bernie Champion. Sharyland High School having to beat Bernie Champion in the best of 3 on the 17th, and Sharyland Pioneer having to beat, well, Liberty Hill in the best of 3 series for a chance to play against none other than what would probably be in their, well, chance to play against each other. Like I said, this is the regional semifinals. I mean, Kingwood Park, Wise still having to play against each other, Georgetown and Nederland, and Wakeland and Corsicana, Midlothian Heritage and Lovejoy, the expected teams to see Grapevine and Wiley and Argyle and Lubbock Cooper. So a lot of those teams are still alive, but again, to see Pioneer versus Sharyland, just like I believe 2019 potentially, or I think that was the year that they played against each other, and that was a phenomenal series in itself. So that would be very exciting to see. May 14th, 2000. So yeah, 3 days from now, that Friday-Saturday series, that's going to be, for both of these teams, going to be absolutely exciting. And if you can, tune in. Hopefully maybe Sharyland will be able to send a crew out there or something like that, so you can watch it for free instead of having to go on NFHS, because it's unfortunate when those games are under a paywall, just in my opinion. But, of course, with close to about maybe a little more than 10 minutes left, so we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we will move on, and we are going to talk about some fun stuff, which will be, well, we'll talk a little bit about the WNBA season coming up here very quickly, because, well, it's going to be fun. And I'll tell you exactly why when we return. We'll be right back.
Truck Techs in Harlingen is your source for lifts, wheels, and tires. Talking trucks of any size, any model, and any year. Specializing in accessories with top-of-the-line products to bring that special look to your truck in a professional way. Lifts, wheels, and tires, with financing available too. Call today or stop by Truck Techs in Harlingen.
My son Leo just graduated from high school, but also with his associate degree from Texas Southmost College at no cost at all. Not having that financial burden was so helpful to our family. That's 2 years we did not have to pay for.
All of my TSC credits transferred to UTRGV, and I am so grateful to go into my major debt-free.
At Marine Military Academy, we educate those who dare to achieve. Those eager to control their future before it controls them. Those who can follow a path so they can eventually make their own. Those ready to join in order to stand out. Welcome to MMA, forging tomorrow's leaders.
South Padre Island. Island. Enjoy endless activities for all ages. Then dance the night away with live music, savor fresh seafood, and discover unique food trucks and shop our charming boutiques. What are you waiting for? Escape the everyday at South Padre Island.
Graduation time. Time to make some decisions. What's next? Can I afford to continue my education? What are my options? At Brownsville ISD Career and Technical Education, you can graduate from high school with a certificate and or license ready to go to work, debt-free. We have a wide range of programs for every student ranging from audiovisual, law enforcement, STEM robotics, electrical, welding, pharmacy, patient care tech, and many more to choose from. That's why Brownsville ISD is the best choice.
Back we go once again here, and well, now we switch gears once more. And this time we land into the WNBA. And why would I even talk about it for a split second? Well, because it's fun. And it's something, of course, to talk about. It's sports during the summer. And yes, we have a lot of stuff that is coming up, like in 51 days, for example. That will be your July 4th. Why do I bring that up? Well, also because that's 51 days until Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest for the Major League Eating. And I'm a fan of that as well, I'll admit it. Hopefully, of course, Joey Jaws Chestnut will be back. That would be something special for that event in general. But anyways, going back to it, of course, WNBA, it's fun. I did a fantasy draft with my friends and even a cousin of mine because it's, again, something to do and something to keep you entertained during the summer, even if you're not necessarily a racing fan or anything like that. Friday, May 16th is when the games start. You have the Lynx, the Wings, the Dream, the Mystics, Sparks, Valkyries on Friday, and then Saturday for even more primetime games or even more blockbuster matchups. You have the Aces taking on the Liberty. Then you have the Sky taking on the Fever. Right off the bat, you have the Sky taking on the Fever. I did not realize that right on the get-go at 2 p.m. Central Time on Saturday. You have the Sky, Angel Reese, taking on the Fever with Caitlin Clark. And that rivalry again, that invisible rivalry, I should say, will start up again. Why do I call it that? Well, because on one side, Angel Reese believes she's the better player, and on the other side, Caitlin Clark doesn't have to prove anything to anybody because everyone knows. And I like what the Fever were doing. You talk about brilliant marketing. Well, the Fever made t-shirts saying if they're ever on the road, every game for them is a home game because people want to watch Caitlin Clark. And so it's brilliant marketing in my eyes. Then you go down, of course, you have the Storm taking on the Mercury at 9 p.m. on Saturday, May 17th. And then on Sunday, May 18th, you have games going on, of course, all weekend. Sunday, May 18th at 12 p.m., you have the Mystics taking on the Sun, and then the Lynx taking on the Sparks again. That would be their second game very quickly. And then Monday, it just continues on and on and on. Very, very exciting. Of course, we talked a little bit about it with the WNBA draft and who got drafted in general, and it was a pretty interesting draft. Of course, you had page backers for the Dallas Wings going number one overall. You had, of course, none other than a big take for the Chicago Sky in the last part of the top 10 and 11 picks. Taking a rookie and then taking Haley Van Lith to help out with Angel Reese. That will be a fun duo. Look for those two to really make a difference, and potentially you might not necessarily see Angel Reese take as many 2-pointers as possible because she'll have help to kick out to Haley Van Lith for a potential 3. So yes, the Chicago are going back to being that villain of a team, and so you have that story mark in there. You have that story arc with them. And then the Las Vegas Aces, what are they going to do? How are they going to perform without Kelsey Plum? Even though they still have Aja Wilson, Jackie Young, and Chelsea Gray at the helm, with their offensive producers not necessarily being Kelsey Plum, which will be very interesting because Kelsey Plum, guess where she is at? She is with the Los Angeles Sparks. The only thing that I really do say that Los Angeles Sparks they could have had was Haley Van Lith. It could have been added to that team, in my opinion, but instead you have Cameron Brink, you have Kelsey Plum, you have this mixture of players that's going to really make this team a lot better than they going back to what they used to be. They used to be this team that was absolutely a dominant force. So, it's going to be exciting. Again, there's so many storylines to produce this season for the WNBA, and I think you're going to see a boost in attendance all across the realm, especially in Dallas. Dallas Wings, I think you'll see a lot more sellouts and a lot more games having to be moved to American Airlines Arena, not just when they play against Fever. So that's going to be very funny, or that's going to be very fun in general, and it's going to be cool, and just looking forward to it. Now, of course, I can kind of move on, even something that I didn't necessarily expect to be able to, I guess, cover at the moment, and that is none other than, well, let's just update you all on some NHL playoff action, for example, or not example, but let's just update you on some NHL playoff action. Today, you have the Panthers taking on the Maple Leafs at 6 p.m., and then for the late game at 8:30 p.m., you have the Oilers taking on the Golden Knights. And Edmonton leads 3-1, trying to take that series over the Golden Knights. Will be very interesting if the Golden Knights can come back at home and win a key Game 5 to make it into a Game 6 and potentially keep the Oilers on their toes back into Edmonton. Panthers, though, the series is tied 2-2 against the Maple Leafs, so Panthers needing to win in Toronto in order to take that lead for a Game 6 to have that advantage at home and try and clinch for potentially a chance at a second straight championship. But now for the Stars and the Jets. Stars won last night against the Jets, and they'll play for a chance at a championship tomorrow at 6 p.m. or to go to the Western Conference Finals, I should say. That's at 8:30. Of course, the Hurricanes and Capitals, they play at 6 p.m., 3-1. Carolina leads the Capitals 3-1. In my opinion, I think they would be the best team to win the Stanley Cup. I think that they are the best team to win that Stanley Cup. If I was a betting man, which I am not in any way, shape, or form, I'm just, again, a person who loves sports, who keeps up with it, and does this for a living, I would say the Hurricanes are really my favorite right now to win the Stanley Cup. I would not be shocked if Edmonton were to make it to the Stanley Cup again, but it's going to be very interesting because Edmonton, even if they were to win, who would you think over the Dallas Stars? That's going to be a series to keep an eye on, especially for everyone here. And guess what? Even last night, people were saying this on TNT and Twitter and everywhere. Dallas, Arlington, Texas, for example, they are a hockey town. And they finally have gotten into this culture that's absolutely amazing. So it's a phenomenal sight to see that we're starting to get that type of excitement in Texas for hockey. And talks of, teams, not talks of relocation, but talks of expansion soon. Again, could see a team in possibly Houston. I think those talks have kind of calmed down, but that's a possibility still in my eyes. But these NHL playoffs have been absolutely outstanding, and I've loved every minute of it. For your NBA playoffs update, I haven't really been keeping an eye on those, but we'll give you your NBA playoff update and who's playing tonight. So NBA playoffs from last night. or from, soon. Well, the Knicks playing the Celtics today at 6 p.m. The Warriors and the Knicks lead 3-1, 3 games to 1 over the Celtics, and should be able to take care of business tonight and move on in Boston. Warriors and Timberwolves at 8:30 p.m. today, and then Nuggets and Thunder played yesterday for your final. OKC leads 3 games to 2, and we'll try to take care of business tomorrow. Who do they play tomorrow again? Or when will they play? 7:30 p.m. against the Nuggets. And then that's the only game tomorrow, but of course we have 2 games today. And then game number 7, if necessary, Nuggets versus Thunder. And Sunday, May 18th to be decided if that game is necessary. Timberwolves and Warriors, as Minnesota leads 3 games to 1. Absolutely amazing stuff. A little bit of upsets. Finally, it's going to be interesting. I'll definitely tune in a little bit more and keep an eye out for all of that, because it's just been absolutely phenomenal stuff. A little bit of racing talk as well. Well, the Indy were on track, thank goodness for them. And it's always around this time. And then, of course, by really Sunday, we'll get a feel of what the weather is going to be like for the race week. And that's phenomenal. Hopefully, it's going to just be sunshine and maybe a little bit hot, but in any way, shape, or form, no rain in the forecast, please, because we want a dry Indianapolis 500. And, of course, one of the drivers that's going to be trying to do the double is Mr. Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson will be going with Arrow McLaren, trying to qualify. If he qualifies, he will have the chance to pull the double. What does that mean? Doing the Indianapolis 500 and flying from Indianapolis all the way to Charlotte, North Carolina, getting back in a race car with a different fire suit on and running in the Coca-Cola 600. And he would be one of the only 2 drivers to ever do that. And we'll see if he can somehow sweep both. I don't see him sweeping because, again, IndyCar, very difficult to do if you don't really do it full time. I would say he's got the talent to make it top 5. I don't see him winning the race. Let me be honest with that. But on the Coca-Cola 600 side, I see him potentially having that opportunity. He's got that fast of a race car with Hendrick Motorsports. Why not win? Why not win the Coca-Cola 600 and just dominate the field after you've after you've driven 500 miles with a completely different car? That's probably going to be a possibility, and I see that happening fully. So very, very exciting stuff coming up here very soon. Hopefully you all enjoyed this show. We're going to call it here. It's been about 55 minutes, and, well, it's been a fantastic show in my eyes. Really, yes, things are slowing down, but things will be picking back up very soon as well, as we have a full summer slate of things to cover. Don't you worry about it for Rio Sports Live Network. And it's going to be awesome to